to the MMA Fan Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Stu and Blake.
Hello and welcome to the MMA Fan Show. I'm Stu Whiffin. Joining me always, Mr. Blake Harrison. How are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. The camera's a bit closer today.
We're a bit snug today,
we're
aren't
snug
we?
today. We're snug. We've got our special guest waiting in the wings, and we've got our first ever kind of Zoom thing in the studio. So I keep looking at you thinking that the camera's going to be there to pick me up. It's not. Everything's down here today.
Right there.
So we're going to have to be talking to each other like, I don't know, like we're in the car or something, just kind of the odd glance every now and again. But
we thought we would do an episode about those people that have to pick up the pieces when your favourite fighter loses and you're just staring at your shoes, just, you know, not knowing how the day's gonna pan out. That person has to pick up the pieces. That person that has to make the kids their breakfast while you're screaming at the TV watching last night's UFC. This is for the people that are really struggling. Are you an MMA widow? Joining us today, well, Blake, I'll let you introduce this one.
joining us today is an incredibly special guest. I like to refer to her as my wife.
Hey!
And that's what
Yeah,
there she goes. We had a really, really high-tech way of revealing you there where Carrie just had
I
paper
also couldn't
over the
stop
camera.
laughing. I'm really sorry. It was such a stupid laugh, and I was like hiding behind a piece of paper.
It was really high-tech, really high-tech. Well, hello, Carrie, my wife.
Hello.
How are you
This
doing?
is weird.
It's really weird, isn't it? Isn't it weird? Yeah. It's really awkward. Should we just like to have like an argument or something? Just let the people
Yeah,
into like what our
I'm up for
relationship's
that.
really like. Whoa, God, I didn't put the
Yeah.
toilet seat down again. And you
Really
didn't put the
get
bins
into
out.
that. Like
Flat
couples
pack the
therapy with
cardboard.
Stu.
Yeah.
I look at that, we need it.
Well, I think overall, really, I don't think you mind me being into MMA too much, do you? You're absolutely fine with it. There's the odd one or two things that probably do annoy you though about me being an MMA fan.
I love that you preempted it there. You've actually laid the foundations. That I know you quite like it, don't you? This is your moment, Carrie. This is where you can really let him have it. About all of them mornings you've been running around with the kids while he's been sitting there with his feet up. Let him have it.
I don't even know where to start because it's one of those things that there's like so much to say, you don't know what to say. Which is why
That's a
we,
good start.
met in this sort of therapeutic setting with Stu as our like mediator. Where do I even start? I think, do you know what I genuinely think? It's almost like that famous Princess Diana interview where she's like, there's three people in this marriage. Me, Blake, and MMA. And I feel like it's been like that for so long that I've just... it's very much part of our life, our little family's life. Every Sunday morning, there are these extraordinary fighters like ripping chunks out of each other as the kids have like some pancakes. It's become really normal. And I was just thinking about it just now, like sort of before chatting with you guys, like, what do I say? Because it has become so normal.
Yeah.
Which in a way I think is wonderful because you bloody love it. It's like, it is your second wife. Yeah. But even like, I don't know, I think it's wonderful because it's really inspired you to train in MMA, which I think's kind of an extraordinary thing. And like,
I think you're waiting for the day for me to come home with like an injury though. Like
I think face or
a broken face or something, and I don't know what your reaction's going to be to that. You had a situation, didn't you, where you go on? Do you want to tell your little story?
Yeah. So I should throw this out. My wife has zero interest in MMA whatsoever, and I've tried to kind of get them involved in it, and I've tried to get the kids in. I said them. I've not got multiple wives. The wife of my daughters.
You're a Mormon, right? You're a Mormon, yeah.
Yeah. And I sort of tried to get the kids involved, but my kids are sort of are grown up. You know, they're 19 and 21. So they'd come down on a Sunday morning. I'd be like, yeah, come on, watch it, and it just didn't resonate. But I think by the time that I was getting obsessed with MMA, I'd already been training in Muay Thai for maybe 10 years. And I'm quite a sort of, what's the word, obsessive with stuff. If I get into something, I love it and I want to do it, all the time. And that's what happened with Muay Thai. And so every night I'd be like, I'm going to go training, or I got up and I went training this morning, and guess what I learned today? And it was just, oh, that's great, yeah. And then after a while, you can tell it was like, oh, for God's sake, can you just pick another midlife crisis, because you've exhausted me on this one. Anyway, I was sparring one lunchtime. I used to use my lunch breaks to go and meet random fellas in gyms to spar.
Sounds very Fight Club.
Sounds so Fight Club.
Lunch break. I'm just going to go down and have a scrap with someone. Coming back like Edward Norton.
Sauna, doesn't it?
Comes back to his boss like Edward Norton, just like cuts on his face, like not taking any shit from his boss.
But I remember I broke my big toe and two of my smaller toes sparring, and I sort of had to get helped out the gym, and I sort of thought I better take myself to A&E, make sure, because the big toe was facing the wrong way. It was all all sorts of bother. Whoa. And I phoned my wife and I was like, right, I'm just to let you know, I'm just on my way to hospital. I've broken a load of toes. And she was like, oh my God, are you all right? I was like, yeah, I'm fine. And she went like, all right, how did you do that? I went, Thai boxing. She was like, oh, you fool. And that was it. It just stopped by then. The interest in my midlife crisis was like, now it's actually disabling you from doing the things you want to do. So, so zero interest on MMA in my house, just me.
Yeah. I think
what that just made me think of is that's sort of how your obsession started, and I think we can happily call it an obsession, can't we?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Is it a problem? It's affecting all my relationships. Yeah.
It just made me think that this is years and years ago, when you first started watching MMA and UFC and following that, it would inspire you to go, and you went and found a gym where we were living in East London. And like you're describing to you, I had no interest and didn't really know much about MMA. But Blake would come home from these MMA sessions with Pete.
Pete Ryan. Shout out. London Shoot Fighters East.
This is a safe space. I think we can both agree you fell in love with Pete. And Blake would come home and describe what he had just been doing for the last hour. And it was so and he pinned me down and I wrapped my legs around him and we're sweating on top of each other.
I mean, I wouldn't have described it like that. That is definitely you taking some liberties and describing it like that. I would be very technical in my analysis.
It was so erotic. I was just to a gym. Was this a sauna? Where have you been?
There's nothing wrong with one man taking another guy's back and just riding him out for 5 minutes. There's nothing wrong with it.
No.
Ask Mobs are alive. He loves it.
Do you know what? Go on, what were you going to say? Sorry.
You have got into it though, haven't you? Because Blake's referenced it a few times where you kind of sort of stick your head in from the next room, and it was and then you sort of end up sort of coming in and watching the fight and stuff like that. So tell us about how you've kind of got into it as well.
No, definitely. I find it utterly captivating because because I know it's something I could never ever do. I find the mental strength of those athletes getting to a place where they can step into a cage and know the person in front of them might do them some really serious damage. Just like I say, extraordinary. I find, the psychology behind it just fascinates me. And sort of some of my favourites are people like Meatball Molly and Paddy that I know are a lot of fan favourites. But there's something.
Volk's been a big one for you, hasn't he? Volkanovski's been a big. He's even our son who's 6 will go up and punch me or something like that, and then just be like, I'm Volkanovski.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's good parenting. He'll call the punch Volkanovski. Oh, Volkanovski!
Yeah.
You got into the Ronda Rousey stuff as well. I think that was really important early on, because there was like a woman absolutely smashing people, and then there was the Ultimate Fighter series between her and Misha Tate, and I think you quite liked the reality element of it as well. Yeah, you quite liked that.
Well, it's inspiring, isn't it? And it's they're just the most extraordinary athletes. I just think it's brilliant. But that you mentioning Volk, we do love Volk. I just think he's fantastic, and it's just reminded me of a couple of years ago. For our daughter Autumn's birthday, we had loads of people over. We were doing like a Harry Potter party or something. Sorry, I don't know why I'm that detail. But anyway, the point is, Volk had a fight with, is his name Ortega?
Yes.
The handsome guy. And
all right, calm down. The handsome guy. How dare you?
I know them. And that was insane. That fight was, that was probably the only, I don't know, I would say that's probably one of the only fights that I've got really emotionally involved with, because that was at the end of like a UFC. That was after an Ultimate Fighter.
And Volk was doing really well, but Ortega had him in a couple of moments where it looked like Volk, well, if it was anyone other than Volk, they could have tapped out and lost the fight. There was a guillotine, there was a triangle choke. But I think what you were going to go on to say was...
the reason I bring up the party is that we had like loads of family over. But like we're all crowded around the TV watching these men just like
children's party.
And like my mum, it's like, tell me when I can come in, because she couldn't cope with what was happening on screen. No. Like the kids are just there, sort of like, oh yeah, what's happening? Two men just fighting. It was just such an amazing fight. Wasn't it?
Your mum really couldn't handle it. I think Ortega's face got quite busted up at one point, and I think your mum was just like, oh God, and then she had to leave the room. She just literally she couldn't be in the room with it, and I think even your dad was like, well, it's a bit much when they got on the floor, isn't it?
Yeah,
a little bit. But
it's just that.
It's been normalised in our house. It is strange.
It's very normalised, and also your level of like dedication, and let's just call it the obsession. Yeah. But it's just like, sorry, the party's on pause while I just see the outcome of this fight, right?
Yes, just to put it out there were no other kids, random kids at this party. It was my daughter just wanted like I don't know if it was around any kind of pandemic time, because it was just family, wasn't it? It was just family. There was no other like I wasn't subjecting random school
I'm
children.
So glad you said that.
to like violence on TV.
I just pictured like all of the responsible adults just crowded around the telly while there's just random kids in your garden playing with boxes of matches, drinking bottles of bleach, just like
or staring at the TV crying.
So, how do you deal with if he stays up and he does the I'm going to get up at 1 a.m. and do the whole thing?
Oh man, you just I just have to switch off and let it happen. I think we've just got to that point now that it's just so important to you. And I don't know, I suppose there was someone described you, Blake, as like an MMA train spotter. Do you remember?
Yeah, I think that was Nick Pete. Nick Pete did a Fight Disciples episode, I think, and it was after I did a TNT thing with him, and he described me as like an MMA train spotter, like with all the stats, like a really geeky guy with glasses.
Like you kind of are. You have really jumped into this with both feet, and I'm sort of just like, oh, I just see how much you love it, and I just think, oh, good for you. I'd rather that than you off to a train station barking down.
That would be too weird.
Maybe that's next. I don't know.
Maybe. Who doesn't love a locomotive?
You get bored of it,
yeah. No.
Should we try a comment?
Go on. You do a couple of those, and I'll pull up the ones on Twitter. Because
all right. So, Carrie, we put it out to the socials for people to talk about their relationship and how it's been impacted by their love of MMA. Fanboy MMA wrote, My wedding night was the same night as McGregor versus Mayweather fight. She wasn't best pleased that I was planning to get up for it during the night. However, the long day and drinks got the better of me and I fell asleep and slept through it. As we awoke for our first day as a married couple, we looked at each other lovingly and it dawned on me, in a panicked voice, my first words to my wife on our first day as a married couple was, "Fuck, I've missed the McGregor fight." She wasn't amused and does like to remind me of that quite a lot. I mean, that is an obsession, isn't it? If you're sort of factoring into your wedding night, like,
brilliant.
I might have to get up and watch the fight.
Yeah. I wonder if it was part of his vows.
Part of her vows was like, I'll never get in the way of a fight. And day one it happened.
Part of our vows was you, like, you remember you said you would never watch Game of Thrones without me.
Yeah, I did. I think that's really important. When you're a couple that enjoy a TV show together, then you can't just go watching it without each other. And sometimes, I'm not going to lie, I think it's caused some friction in our relationship when one person, Carrie, has gone off and watched an episode of something without me.
I only did that once with Succession, and I learned the hard way.
But that reminds me, because the fact is, I do think Volkanovski seems to have a habit of fighting either around your birthday or our anniversary. He's fighting in like February or October a lot. And we have been away, I think we went to like Amsterdam for your, I can't remember when, but anyway, we were away and I think we woke up the next morning and we were at like a spa hotel or something like that, and I was just watching the fights on the iPad while you were like laying next to me, like, I don't know, just like relaxing or whatever. And I had to be watching the fights even though we were away on like a romantic weekend. So yeah, it's probably not easy for you. Sorry about that.
Do you think there is anything in the fact that, like, people that are into MMA, fans of MMA, are so into MMA? Like, those that I have met, they jump in with both feet and they're so into it.
I think there is a casual fan base. But I think what it is I think MMA is still quite a niche sport in a lot of ways, even though it is really growing. And I think that it's like the reason this podcast happened, wasn't it? Was because I didn't really have any other friends to talk about it on the level that I wanted to talk about it on. And I think you felt maybe slightly similar. I know you had Pip, but other than that, like, you didn't really have anyone. And so it was just like, that's how this whole thing came about. Our whole friendship is based solely around the fact that we both love MMA.
Outside of MMA, we don't like each other at all.
Nothing to say to each other.
Nothing.
He's a horrible human being.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I wanted to bring up a comment because I thought this made me chuckle. I put this out on the socials, and a guy said, "Oh, completely unrelated to MMA, but I swear I saw you at Disneyland, and I was the dude in the classy Home Alone Christmas jumper, and we loved that jumper. We did see a Christmas jumper at Disneyland that was a Home Alone Christmas jumper."
He had, like, to explain it, he had one of those, like, it's like knitted Home Alone jumper. Oh my God, it was fantastic.
It had like the house and the burglars and it was great. It was brilliant.
Oh wow!
Anyway, but let's go on to MMA.
Man and your brilliant jumper.
Phil Duff, shout out Phil Duffy. We even know his name now. And also one of his avatar has got a giant Bluey next to him. So he seems like my kind of guy. I love Bluey.
We really relate to him.
We do. So he said, anyway, in short, they have a floor bed which gets pulled out when he's got a decent like pay-per-view or a British fighter is fighting. And he also went on to say that he can't do the all-nighters. He tried a couple of times at Wrexham, but sometimes he does set an alarm for like 2 a.m. to get up and watch the prelims. And then the girls go swimming on a Sunday morning so that he can recover in the living room. And we can relate to that as well because you have to do the swim.
Got our life.
Phil Duffy, are you me?
Not only does he wear good knitwear, he's also
he's got our life.
Got the same life as us.
Because you have to do the swimming every Sunday morning, and I get away with it because I'm technically working, guys.
Oh, man.
For this show.
Where do you stand on that?
Working.
Where do you stand on the usage of the word work?
It's painful. I don't know why I've done it to us. Why have I even booked swimming lessons for? Like, they're at 8 o'clock in the morning. But I'm sure like any parents listening will know, like, the juggle of getting all their clubs and God knows what they need to do fitting over the weekend is really hard. It's quite honestly a pain in the arse. Like, Blake's like, "Oh, I'm working." I'm lying on the sofa in my dressing gown, watching MMA. This is work. And I'm like,
The struggle's real, mate. The struggle is
I'll
real.
go off to the swimming pool at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday.
I want to know where if this factors into to your and Blake's relationship, because there's a lot of these comments here. This one, for instance, my wife often walks in on me and my 2-year-old watching UFC, and it never goes down well. She's also fed up of her arm being pushed into several arm bars every time she goes for a cuddle. So it seems that we've had quite a few messages that whenever somebody goes for a cuddle, like the wife comes for a cuddle, they're generally trying to show them their new move, which is generally some sort of like submission or something.
That is so funny. So funny. Blake, do you remember we used to try and train? It was quite short-lived.
Oh my God, we did. So there was this. Was it during like the pandemic or whatever? There was the great. What was it? Henzo Gracie and someone else. Was it?
Gracie
it was a couple of Gracie. Yeah, two of the Gracie family were doing like.
Excitable,
it was like a masterclass thing. I think one of them was Ortega's coach actually, doing like a masterclass on like jiu-jitsu. And we tried to do a few episodes of it, like it was on like Zoom or whatever, and we tried to do like a few episodes of it. So if our neighbours were looking out the window, we were just like rolling around in the back garden, like, trying to pin each other down.
Yeah,
it probably looked super weird. That's what our neighbours are living next to.
I mean, this is a fantastic comment from Tom the God. My ex fell asleep upstairs in her expensive new lingerie, waiting to surprise me, whilst I was downstairs waiting for Diaz versus Pettis to start. She was fuming when I finally woke up at 1 p.m. the next day.
I think we all know why she's an ex then.
Yeah. I mean, Diaz Pettis, I don't remember being like a great fight either, so like that's just not worth it. Oh man, I think there was a couple more here. I've lost it. Where did it go? Oh yes, some guy says, John MMA and me. He said he was in his partner's bad books for waking her up when Leon nearly decapitated Usman with that kick, and I think you've had a few shout at the TV issues, and I think that Leon head kick, because it came out of absolutely nowhere.
Yeah.
What happened with you?
I shouted "fuck me" at the top of my voice, at probably about 5 a.m. And so I imagine both my daughters have probably been asleep about 2 hours. They probably just got in. My wife would have been fast asleep, and I've done the same when Thug Rose knocked out Zhang. When she done that, I literally screamed, "Oh my God!" And when I heard DC going Thug Rose, I started doing it as well. And I think that was the time when I heard the door go upstairs, and it was like, "Will you be quiet?" And I was like, "Sorry."
Because most of the time I'm watching it in the morning, I think sometimes like you've got home from swimming around the time that a main event is happening, and you're like in the kitchen and I'm in the living room, and all you hear is like, "Whoa!" And I swear I've heard you under your breath be like, "Jesus Christ."
Yeah. But it's just like the emotion that goes into that, like how tense you get, and then it's just like whatever's happened, it is amazing.
I think as well when Thug Rose beat Zhang and got the belt put back round her waist and was being interviewed and was going, "I am the best," and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I also remember at that point thinking, because I've just been told to shut up, and I thought, they're awake. I can't go to bed yet because I can't let them see that 1 minute I've just been shouting, "Oh my God," and then if they see me, I'm still crying.
I wonder if you saw that actually. Like she was like, "I am the best," and like crying. I can't remember. I'll tell you what you had a big reaction to as well. I think was it when Leon Edwards won the belt? And he was like crying and like talking about where he'd been and where he'd come from, and look at me
recently, now. Was that the one recently? There was loads of beef between him and some other guy.
No, that was Colby Covington recently. That was when Covington said some really awful stuff about his dad. And I think that is the other thing, is that sometimes you do unfortunately see some of the negative aspects of it as well, in terms of like sometimes I will be watching something, or there's like a press, like, I mean, Jesus Christ, we just had a Sean Strickland press conference or whatever, and it's like, it's not the best thing. And I think that's something where I'm like, even I get disappointed in the sport because you might have seen, obviously we keep kids away from all that kind of stuff, but like, that's when I go, no, that's a bit of a shame. But
there are some negative aspects, particularly to the UFC, like seeing Donald Trump's little orange face like sticking through. You know, you're just like, ugh. But also, you know, with that, there's some real positives, and like, I think there's a lot of real inspiration that can come from watching, watching these fighters in action. And also, like, I remember watching one with you recently with Tom Aspinall, got that name right, and he spoke really like eloquently about how fearful he was going into a fight.
Yes.
And how he used that fear and how it motivated him and pushed him further and further. And he ended up winning. And like, I remember sort of the kids were with us watching that. And I was really making an example of that. And like, look what this man was able to achieve by using this emotion and using it, putting it to good. And also, you know, like Paddy has spoken really openly about like mental health, and there's a lot of good, and it's so much, you know, some really important messaging. But unfortunately, there's some negative aspects too, aren't there? That maybe you'd want to kind of throw in the bin. But
I mean, I think also just off the back of what you're saying about Paddy, I was going to mention that because you actually work in kind of like mental health, mindfulness field. And when he came out and said his stuff about his friend that sadly passed away and how he'd rather have his mate cry on his shoulder than have to carry his coffin at his funeral and stuff like that, that speech transcended just the kind of MMA social media platforms, because you, as someone in the kind of mindfulness mental health world, you were seeing that speech, weren't you, on some of your other accounts that you said? It went everywhere. Yeah,
it went everywhere. And I think there was so much importance there for an athlete, particularly in the MMA world, and particularly with, I don't know, there is a certain sort of opinion people have about what MMA fighters are like and what they stand for. And I think that was really important, him being so vocal about this sort of paying attention to mental health and reaching out for support. It was huge. And like you say, I think it did go, it was really far reaching. And I think particularly for men's mental health, it was, I don't know, it was really poignant. And it was a really wonderful moment.
Absolutely.
Well, have we got any other little comments? I know Brad Wharton messaged me saying that he met his wife at an MMA event, so she knew what she was getting into. So she knew. So shout out Brad Wharton, for Cage Warriors commentator Brad Wharton. Have we got any other things that we want to wrap this up with? Little comments?
This guy, he has landed on his feet. This is from NJAR23. My wife drives me half an hour to my mates at 1 a.m, then picks me up when it's over at 6 a.m, and I've also been known to throw up on the way home drunk.
I mean, that's either not true or his wife is like a cyborg that he's created in his shed that just does what he says.
An AI wife.
AI wife. Who does that?
Wild.
Who's like, I'll drop you around your mates at 1, then just go to sleep for like 4.5 hours, then come and pick you up at 6 while you're vomiting out the window.
Yeah.
That sounds like a lovely relationship.
Yeah. Wow.
I'll rattle a couple more off. Bully SWFC, turning off the babies' programmes to watch last night's UFC you recorded and not seeing the results always goes down very well. My girl thinks it's a bad influence on me because I always get her in triangle chokes and it gets in the way of doing things at the weekend. That's from Alfie Robinson.
Again, don't just be putting people in triangle.
No, seriously,
please
people,
don't do that.
Don't do that. Joshua Watkins, My partner works in a school for children with residential care needs. With residential care needs Monday to Thursday till 10 p.m. each day. The weekend is family time for us. That's nice. And our toddler.
Where's this going?
Beautiful. Except UFC weekends. That's marked on our family calendar, so she knows which Sundays not to expect me to go to soft play.
Fair enough.
I mean, when it says except UFC weekends, it's pretty much every weekend.
Bloody weekend. I have noticed people saying that they're getting their partners in like moves and stuff like that. I have ever since like doing a tiny bit of like wrestling and jiu-jitsu and stuff, I use the gable grip to carry the kids now. I don't just like when we were at Disneyland and we were like walking like like 25 minutes, 30 minutes with them like asleep on us. I'm there like using gable grip to like carry the kids. I'm not just carrying them normally anymore. I don't carry them with love. I carry them as if I'm ready to take them down.
With purpose.
With
Why
purpose.
is it like that? I can't see you guys at the moment, but is it like that?
Oh yeah, you can't see us. It's no, your thumbs kind of both come in.
Yeah, I think I might do that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's gable grip. Gable grip those kids, and that's how you can carry them a long distance.
Jesus Christ. Well, I think that's all we've got from the comments that come in. Thanks everyone that did come in with comments. And Carrie, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. It was really fun.
It's great. It was lovely talking to you. God, we'll have to do this again sometime.
I mean, you can do it when you go home in a couple of hours.
Oh, right. Yes. No, you're right. Yeah, we could do that.
Remember?
You do have my number.
Wonderful. Carrie, thank you so much.
Bye, babe. Well, there you go. That was a lovely little chat with my wife.
My wife. Let us know how it's affected your relationship. If you've been inspired by this or you need to reach out for counselling because of this, Blake and I will be setting up a MMA Widows support group where you can turn up and try and process, how life can be, how tricky life can be, if you're in a relationship with someone that is obsessed with MMA.
Helpline? Do you need? I'll put Stu's phone number.
Yeah, just call me
underneath.
Yeah,
and
you
can just call Stu, and that'll be our helpline.
So massive thanks to Carrie for coming on today and speaking about work. Your work.
Speaking about my work, and also she didn't know I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this now. If you are someone with kids and they are a bit younger and they are maybe struggling to sleep or anything like that, she's got her own little podcast called Your Floating Bed, which is all these sleep journeys. She can take you on a journey to Pokemon World, to Star Wars World, to Under the Sea, Up in Space, all that stuff. And it's just a nice little thing for the kids to listen to when they go to sleep. So if you've got kids, listen to that. There you go. Done my bit for my wife.
Fantastic. What we should say as well is if you've not subscribed to this show yet, please subscribe. Go check out the back catalogue if this was your first time listening, because we've had so many superstars of mixed martial arts come and chat to us over the last few years, and we have got some ace guests coming up. This was our first show, as Blake mentioned, in our new studio with someone joining us remotely. It's all gone to plan. So that means
we hope it's all gone to plan.
Post-production, if you're watching this, it's all gone great. So that opens up the doors. We've got a big backlog of guests that we've been reaching out to that want to come on the show, that obviously either don't live in the country or live at the far end of the country, so they can join us on the big screen. And so we're going to have some great stuff coming your way soon. So subscribe, make sure you don't miss it, and give us a little follow on Instagram or on TikTok or on X, and just search the MMA Fan Show.
Done.